cows that come up to your waist, goats the size of a large dog, donkeys you can hug without bending down. If you've scrolled through any homesteading page, and miniature livestock has quietly become one of the fastest growing corners of backyard farming. Not because it looks cute online, but because it solves a real problem most backyard farmers actually have: not enough land. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which mini breeds are worth it, which ones are hype, and the mistakes that trip up almost every new owner. If that sounds useful, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep making videos like this one. Now let's get into it. Full-size cattle need real acreage, usually 1 to 2 acres per animal just for proper grazing. That's out of reach for most backyard or suburban setups, and it's the exact wall a lot of new farmers hit. Miniature breeds change that math completely. A standard cow can weigh over 1,200 pounds and stand 5 to 6 feet tall. Most miniature cattle top out around 36 to 48 inches and weigh between 500 and 1,000 pounds. That's a different animal to house and feed, and the feed difference is the part people underestimate the most. Miniature cattle generally eat about a third of what a full-size animal eats, while still giving you usable milk or meat. A mini Dexter or mini Jersey can produce 1 to 3 gallons of milk a day, enough for a household without needing a walk-in fridge to store the surplus. This isn't a passing trend either. Sourcing has actually gotten harder in some regions because popular breeds like mini Herefords and Dexters often have wait lists due to limited availability. When demand outpaces supply like that, it tells you the interest is real, not just something people post about and move on from. Here's where most people get confused though, because not all mini animals are the same, and picking the wrong one for your goal is the most common early mistake. The Dexter is technically not even a modern miniature. It's an old Irish breed that's naturally small, standing 36 to 44 inches and weighing 600 to 900 pounds. It's dual purpose, giving you both milk and meat, and it's known for staying healthy on poor pasture, which makes it one of the most practical starting points. Miniature Herefords and lowline Angus are true scaled-down versions of standard beef breeds, bred specifically for smaller size while keeping good meat yield. Miniature Jerseys go the other direction, bred for rich, high butterfat milk instead. Miniature Zebu are usually the most affordable entry point, often costing much less than Highlands or Herefords, since they're one of the oldest and most established small breeds. And here's the part that trips people up the most. A miniature version of a breed keeps the characteristics of its full-size counterpart. A mini Hereford won't be a good milk producer, and a mini Jersey won't be a great beef animal. You're not just picking small, you're picking a purpose in a smaller package, and buying based on looks instead of purpose is how people end up disappointed 6 months in. Cattle aren't the only animal driving this trend either. Mini goats are arguably the bigger entry point for most backyard farmers, since they take even less space and cost less to start with. The Nigerian Dwarf is the current favorite among suburban homesteaders, standing just 17 to 22 inches tall. But don't let the size fool you on output. Their milk regularly hits 6 to 10% butterfat, which is noticeably richer than most full-size dairy breeds. And it's a big reason they've become the go-to choice for anyone wanting homemade cheese or soap without keeping a full-size dairy goat. Pygmy goats sit on the other end of the purpose spectrum, generally kept for companionship and hobby farming rather than milk, and they're often recommended as the easiest entry point for total beginners because of how hardy and low maintenance they are. Mini Nubians split the difference, combining the floppy-eared Nubian with Nigerian Dwarf genetics for a goat that's still compact but leans more dairy-focused. The registration numbers back up how fast this is growing too. The Miniature Dairy Goat Association saw registrations jump 73% in a single year, which is a steep curve for any livestock category. Prices for mini goats are also far more accessible than mini cattle, generally landing between $200 and $800 depending on breed and bloodline, which makes goats a realistic starting point if you want to test whether backyard livestock is actually for you before committing to something bigger like a mini cow. Now let's talk money, because this is where the trend gets misunderstood the most. People assume smaller automatically means cheaper, and that's true for ongoing costs, but not always true up front. Miniature cattle are frequently more expensive to buy than full-size commercial breeds. Regular beef cattle like Angus or Hereford feeders, steers often run $1,500 to $3,000. But many miniature breeds cost as much or more, especially high-demand breeds like Highlands, where limited ethical breeders and heavy online demand push prices up. Producing a properly proportioned small animal takes generations of selective breeding, and that time gets reflected in the price. Mini Zebu tend to be the exception, often landing in the $500 to $2,500 range if budget is your main concern. Where the savings actually show up is years later. Mini cattle eat less, need less pasture, and are easier on fencing, So over a 15 to 20 year lifespan, the total cost of ownership can end up comparable to or even lower than a full-size animal. But that only pays off if you're keeping the animal long term, and people expecting instant savings are often the ones caught off guard. Vet care is another cost that gets missed, since not every vet has direct experience with miniature breeds, meaning you might drive further or pay more for a specialist. And fencing still needs to be proper fencing. It doesn't need to be as heavy duty as what full-size cattle require, but miniature breeds, especially goats, can still test weak fence lines. So cutting corners because they're small is a mistake people make more often than you'd think. There's also a health side to this trend that rarely gets talked about, and it matters more than people think. When breeders push hard for extreme smallness, they're often working with a limited gene pool, and that raises the risk of inherited defects. Dwarfism genes are the clearest example. In cattle and horses, certain dwarfism mutations cause skeletal problems, joint pain, and in some cases a shortened lifespan. And these issues show up specifically because breeders selected too aggressively for size instead of overall health. This isn't a reason to avoid miniature livestock altogether, but it is a reason to be selective about where you buy from. Reputable breeders now use genetic testing, often in the $50 to $200 range per animal, to screen for conditions like bulldog dwarfism before breeding, and they prioritize health and temperament over chasing the smallest possible animal. If a seller can't tell you anything about the lineage or health testing of the parents, that's a red flag, not a bargain. If you're thinking further ahead, breeding miniature livestock yourself can actually be a legitimate income source, not just a hobby. Many Highland calves, for example, have sold in the $2,000 to $7,000 range depending on lineage and registration, which is a real number for someone with the space and setup to raise a small breeding herd responsibly. But this only works if it's done right. Overbreeding for extreme size, skipping health screening, or crossbreeding without a clear plan are the fastest ways to end up with unhealthy animals and a damaged reputation as a seller. If breeding is part of your long-term goal with mini livestock, registering offspring with the relevant breed association and keeping proper pedigree records isn't optional. It's what separates a serious small operation from someone just trying to cash in on a trend. Beyond breed choice and cost, a few mistakes show up again and again with newer owners. The first is zoning. A lot of suburban and semi-rural properties have specific rules on what counts as livestock versus pets and how many animals you're allowed to keep. And mini doesn't automatically mean it qualifies as a pet under local law. Check this before buying, not after the animal is already home. The second is assuming mini automatically means docile. Some miniature breeds are known for calm temperaments, but that's not universal, and certain bulls can still be difficult to handle regardless of size. The third is treating these animals like a novelty instead of a real commitment. They still need proper shelter, hoof or foot care, correct nutrition, and companionship, since most of these species don't do well kept alone. And buying one purely because it looked appealing online is how a lot of animals end up rehomed within a year. The fourth is skipping research on the breeder. Because demand has outpaced supply for several popular breeds, the market has attracted sellers advertising mini animals that aren't properly bred to standard, meaning they can grow larger than expected. Buying from an established breeder connected to a recognized registry is the difference between getting what you actually wanted and being disappointed a year later. And the last one is thinking short-term, because these are 15 to 20-year commitments in most cases. The same kind of timeline you'd factor in for any long-lived pet. If you're actually considering getting into this, the smart move is starting small before going all in. Don't buy a mini cow as your first animal if you've never kept livestock before. Start with something lower stakes, like a pair of Nigerian Dwarf or Pygmy goats, since goats generally do better in pairs anyway, and the cost of a mistake is far lower than it would be with cattle. Use that first year to actually learn the day-to-day work, feeding schedules, fencing upkeep, hoof care, and how much time this really takes before deciding whether to add a mini cow or donkey to the mix. Before buying anything, call your local zoning office directly instead of assuming, get a real quote on fencing for your specific property, and ask any breeder you're considering for proof of health testing and registration, not just photos. This trend rewards people who treat it like an actual farming decision, and it burns people who treat it like an impulse buy because an animal looked appealing in a video. None of this means the trend isn't worth exploring. It just means going in with real information instead of assuming smaller automatically means simpler. Know your purpose before picking a breed, budget for the real costs, and check your zoning before anything else. If this helped you understand the trend better, subscribe for more videos breaking down what's actually worth it in backyard farming, and let me know in the comments which mini breed you'd actually consider for your own backyard.